What's going on, everyone? Today we are discussing how to play the mid game in Arena in order to maximize your points. If you haven't checked it out, I came out with an early game guide to Arena, and after this video I will be coming out with a late game guide as well. I do recommend watching them in order because I will be working off of the last video. Real quick before we get into how to maximize your points in the mid game, I just want to give a thank you to everyone liking the videos and watching on a regular basis. I really appreciate every single one of you. Alright, so where we left off in the early game guide is your rotation. We mentioned that you want to start your rotation by looking to see where the weak side is. If you aren't sure where the weak side is, it's the side that will likely have the least amount of people in it or rotating into it. An example of this can be the side of the circle that doesn't have popular towns on it, or if the circle is half off the edge of the map, so you know less people will be all the way out there. This is slightly different from rotating early game due to your rotation in the early game being much more structured. You want to hit this house, and that house before leaving. In the mid game, the zone is going to determine where you want to rotate. The mid game is all about rotation and making it easy on you to get to the late game. A big reason why you may choose to rotate a certain way or not is to avoid mid game fights and get to areas where you are essentially by yourself. Mid-game fights are the quickest way to either get good loot or get disappointed. These fights are very tricky due to you often not starting the fight close to your opponent and often having to use more mats due to your rotation most of the time being in open areas. These are also tricky because they attract third partiers 9 out of 10 times. First and foremost, you want to avoid all mid-game fights most of the time because you haven't yet hit the threshold to start earning placement points, and they can be risky, causing you to come out of the game with no points. So obviously the first thing I'm going to tell you is to try to gain a favorable position so you can either avoid the fight or make it a horrible fight for your opponent to take. Although if you get caught in a fight, you need to try and end the fight as fast as possible. In order to not let it drag out, you have to close the distance on your opponent quickly, which can cause you to lose a lot of mats. You want to mitigate the mats you lose by using a different material than your opponent in the fight. That way, if your opponent uses wood and you use brick, you will be able to replenish your brick with the brick he didn't use. If you both use wood, then whoever comes out of that fight is just out of wood. Ending the fight as quick as possible will reduce your chance of getting third partied. The best scenario for a third partier is to see two people fighting and be able to easily pick off a kill and then push you while you're weak. If they see that the fight has ended and you are probably all healed up, it is far less likely that they'll take that fight. So if you can, avoid fights. If you are getting shot at from afar, put up walls and keep on moving. If you get into a fight, try to end it early by closing the gap between you and your opponent. Alright, let's say that you're rotating but looking around to make sure that you don't get snuck up on, and you see a fight you can third party. Should you do it, or should you avoid that fight and keep it moving? First, let's talk about a few simple tips, then I will get into what you should look for when third partying. First tip is to see if you can pick one or both of them off from afar. Most likely, if it looks like they have been fighting for a minute, they are both most likely less than full health. Who knows? A simple shot or two may get you the kill. The second tip is when you see one of them dominating the other, try to take that one out first, unless you got a clear shot on the other one. The reason you want to do this is because once you eliminate the better player, the worst player should be fairly easy for you to go and clean up. If you do it the other way around, you then put yourself in a build battle and in a better chance of losing. The third tip, if you decide to third party, try to get height. Nothing is worse than when you take a few shots, they both notice you are attempting to third party, and either one or both of them start firing back at you. If you have height, you make it far less appetizing to shoot back because you have all the advantage. They will usually keep fighting amongst themselves or turtle up, and then you could continue to try to look to pick them off. Now there are a few things to look for that will allow you to decide whether to take a fight or not. The first is how far is the next circle and where is the storm. If the circle is far and the storm is right on you, it may be best to avoid that fight and just leave. You may get the chance to get into zone and hold them out of zone to see if you could get that kill instead. If the circle is close and the storm isn't pushing you in, then maybe you want to take that fight. You just want to avoid the storm due to later zones causing more damage. Secondly, you want to see if the angle you would be coming at the fight is in your favor or out of your favor. Kind of like our tip before, if you're coming at the fight and they are high up in the air and have a pretty solid base that will take you a while to break through, then it might be a good idea not to take that fight. The reason it won't be a good idea to take that fight is because both of them will have high ground on you. This will make you an easier target to take care of if one or both of them decide to fire back at you. If you're able to get up to the same level or higher than them, then you will put the fight in your favor. Of course, if you're shooting from a distance, height doesn't really matter and you can go ahead. This tip is if you're planning on getting close to them. Thirdly, try your best to understand where other enemies are so you don't get fourth and fifth partied. If you see an enemy somewhat close, even if they are boxed up, it may not be a good idea to third party by getting close, but rather try to pick them off from a distance. Make sure to take a look around to make sure you're safe to make this push. Big moral of the story is that these tips should be used if you are confident you can get the kill. If you aren't confident you could get the kill, you should continue to avoid fights at this point in the mid game. Alright, let's talk about after you rotate successfully and make it into one of the later zones, just about the time you start earning points and the end game is about to begin. You want to try to find the best position for yourself to survive. This means to box up away from people. Now you aren't always going to be able to afford that luxury, but you should try. Also, try to find a spot within the zone that has natural high ground. More than 3 tiles high, and if you drop, you will take damage. So natural high ground is the best way for you to gain height on everyone else while mitigating the fall damage. Once you get this natural high ground, people will most likely try to push you for the high ground depending on how small the circle is and if you are on the weak side or not. In this case, make sure you keep height by shooting them down and keeping pressure on them. Once you are in a position where everyone has left you alone, you want to look to take chip shots at people that you see who are still rotating. You can edit then re-edit walls, pre-edit stairs, and pre-edit cones to see through them to get a good view of your surroundings. This will allow you to know if someone is pushing you, but better yet, allows you to see if you can pick off kills to earn extra points. At this point, you still want to avoid fights to ensure your spot in the endgame in order to maximize your points. But if you're able to steal a kill while being safe, then do it. Next time we will talk about when zones are getting small, starting to move, and what to do when you start reining in those placement points. In other words, we will be talking about the end game. If you enjoyed the video and want to continue seeing more content, don't forget to like and subscribe with notifications on. Have a great day.